We all know that bikes are a more environmentally friendly way of getting around than driving a car, but recent research by online magazine Bike Radar suggests that e-bikes could have the lowest carbon footprint of all, even lower than walking. They claim to have discovered that the manufacture and ongoing charging of an e-bike creates less carbon emissions than producing the food needed to fuel a walker over the same journeys. But are pricier e-bikes best, or can you get better value from a budget model? Well, to find out, I'm going to put this pair through their paces. They're all-rounders, meaning they're built for riding in the city and the countryside. Our high-end hopeful is the Treadwell Neo 2 EQ from big bike brand Cannondale, costing a cool £1,885. It's got 8 gears and 3 levels of power assist. Low is just a little help, high a powerful push that's perfect for hills. Our budget contender is the £599 Basis Protocol from eBikes Direct. That's less than a third of the price of the Cannondale. The Basis has 5 levels of power, but just 6 gears. So on paper, that might make it a bit harder on the hills. But it does have an LCD display mounted on the handlebars, which shows both speed and distance. Joining me to test them is Beth Ward, co-owner of Drossy Bikes in North Wales. When she's not selling, fixing or converting bikes, she's out riding them, once all the way to Istanbul. Beth, hello, great to see you. Thank you for joining us today.
You're very welcome.
Now, North Wales is famously hilly. I'm guessing an e-bike would be a real advantage.
They are indeed, yeah. I've got one at home. I use it for my daily commute, which is up and over a big mountain pass. I'm also 5 months pregnant, which means that having any extra assistance on a bike makes life a lot easier.
So I've got 2 e-bikes here for you to have a look at. Shall we go for a ride?
Yes, let's.
Let's. While both bikes have similar-sized batteries and cost around 7p to charge, they have varying claims over range, up to 37 miles for the Cannondale and just 25 for the budget Basis. Although these figures will be affected by the terrain, rider's weight and level of pedal assistance used. Surely good. For today's ride, we're starting out on the city streets of Manchester, home to one of the longest urban cycleways in Britain. Oh, look, there's a bike lane again. I try and go into it. And up first, we've both taken the saddle of the premium Cannondale. Now, the Cannondale's got a torque sensor. The more effort you put into pedalling, the more power it gives you.
That gives you a much more natural feel when you're cycling along. It feels as it would if you're cycling a normal bike. It also kicks in quite quickly when you're setting off and stops when you stop pedalling, so it is very responsive in that sense.
The Cannondale doesn't have any suspension. I mean, I still think there's plenty of comfort in the saddle, though.
You don't seem to feel the potholes too much through the wrists or in the saddle.
And there are plenty of potholes here in the middle of Manchester. The Cannondale boasts hydraulic disc brakes, which should mean even the smallest pull on the levers will deliver big stopping power.
We're using them a lot. There's lots of stop-starting on these roads. They're definitely responsive.
So far, so good. But as any cycle commuter knows, the journey's not over until your bike is safely locked away, which with some bikes is more hassle than others. It is reasonably light, isn't it? That goes into there. This wheel goes in there. At 19.6 kilos, including its battery, the Cannondale is the lighter of the 2 bikes.
I've lifted some e-bikes before and they weigh an absolute ton, but that was all right.
Right, well, let's go and do the commute again. Our second commute of the day will be on the budget Basis. It doesn't have a dynamic torque sensor to vary the amount of assistance based on your pedalling effort. Instead, it comes with a speed sensor, which simply turns assistance on when you're pedalling and off when you're not.
Yeah, and there seems to be a slight lag when you start pedalling for the assistance to kick in.
An uphill start. There's a lot more effort required on the starts, isn't there?
I was out of my saddle then for the first time. Definitely didn't get that at all on the Cannondale.
That's because the pedal has to do a full rotation before the sensor is activated, although the Basis does have 5 levels of assistance compared to the Cannondale's 3, something Beth appreciates.
When you're cycling around towns like this and you stop-start and you're going slowly at times, I quite like having the lower settings so you don't need quite as much assistance.
Yes, I think you're right. Well, what about comfort? I've just gone through quite a substantial pothole there.
The front suspension definitely helps on the potholes. It makes it more comfortable on your wrist. I think I feel it more through the saddle, so through the rear I'm feeling more of the bumps than on the Cannondale.
I wouldn't say it eliminates the bumps. The Basis has mechanical disc brakes, which are cheaper than hydraulic ones, but require a firmer pull on the levers.
There's a bit more give in these brakes. Isn't necessarily a bad thing.
I find you get more feel through the brakes on this.
Yeah, it's a bit more gradual, isn't it?
After another couple of miles on the Mancunian tarmac, it's time to lock up our bikes again. At 22 kilos, nearly 3 more than the Cannondale, will we struggle loading the Basis onto the racks? Line it up. Ooh, it feels heavier to start with. God.
It needs them out.
But that's definitely more awkward. So after our commuting test, what's your thoughts?
I think the Cannondale's definitely more comfortable to be riding around town.
Yeah, I agree. The Cannondale was more comfortable, better power delivery, so it seems to be edging ahead. But will the budget Basis catch up later on in today's show as we leave the daily grind behind and head to the countryside to tackle more rugged terrain? Earlier, e-bike expert Beth and I found that when it comes to battery-powered bikes, the premium Cannondale, costing £1,885, performed better in the city than a budget model from Basis at a third of the price. But with leisure the #1 use for e-bikes, the countryside's the perfect backdrop for Test 2. Both bikes on test are hybrids, meaning they're not only happy on tarmac, but trails too. How will they perform on this rougher terrain? To find out, we're both starting on the premium Cannondale. Well, this is good, in the country.
I know.
Away from all that traffic.
Yeah, no cars to dodge. It's nice to ride a bit faster.
Yes. Helpfully, the Cannondale comes with mudguards, but the lack of any suspension is causing us problems on the loose gravel. On the bigger bumps, the front wheel seems to slide about rather too much.
You feel it kind of jumping around from side to side a bit.
Yes.
It's a bit rigid on your hands, on your wrists.
So, not quite as good at eating up the bumps off-road as it is on-road. Time to tackle the slopes.
Oh, here's a hill.
With 8 gears and 3 levels of power, the Cannondale has no issues with a hill which would normally leave me distinctly out of puff. I've gone into my medium power mode. But it'll still accelerate though.
Definitely makes hills a lot faster, doesn't it?
It makes a doddle. But all this hill climbing is bound to have an effect on battery levels. So time to check in on them.
Oh, I'm down to blue.
I'm down to blue too. Cannondale claims a pedal assistance range of 37 miles in ideal conditions. But riding up all these challenging rugged hills means that takes a hit. Despite travelling just 6 miles today, the battery indicator suggests we'd likely come up short of the full claimed range. Onto the other bike. The £599 Basis, which comes in 2 colours, is cheaper than the Cannondale, but it's the only one with suspension, which could help on this rougher, muddy terrain. Is the suspension helping?
Yeah, it definitely feels smoother on the front, doesn't it?
But while the premium Cannondale has a choice of 3 frame sizes, the basic Basis is one size fits all. Or not, as the case may be.
Because this frame's a bit big for me, it's not quite so easy to ride on the uneven terrain. That makes as much difference as the suspension is good.
Oh, right. See how the Basis tackles the hill. I don't think it's such an easy ascent. With fewer gears and less responsive pedal assistance, getting up hills on the 22-kilo Basis is proving rather difficult.
I think if you slow down, it makes it really tricky to get started again.
I think tricky is a bit of an understatement. When I eventually got to the top... Oh dear, that was a very undignified ascent. Thankfully, it was only a short ride until we reached the finish line of our day's riding. How much battery have we got left?
Most of a battery, I'm down 1 bar.
Yeah, well, I'm down at least 2 bars. I've got sort of like 2.5 left. Despite our battery levels differing, likely down to rider weight, after travelling the same routes as we did on the Cannondale, they indicate we'd likely get closer to the Basics claimed range of 25 miles. But which bike offers the better bang for your buck? Tricky, isn't it?
It is a tough one. I think I would go for the Cannondale. For me, was a better fit, it was a more comfortable ride, and the power assist was just a smoother and more comfortable all-round experience.
Even though it's 3 times the price of the bases.
It's a lot more money, isn't it? But for the compromises that you make, the delay in the power assist,
Well, I certainly found that. I certainly found I couldn't start again. And then the weight becomes a tremendous disadvantage.
Yeah, it would probably mean I ride it less. So for me, that's a big deal.
Yes, you actually get more value out of the more expensive bike because you'll be using it much more.
Exactly.
Yeah, I agree.